I hope it works. What we have seen over the last month and a half in San Antonio and other metros in Texas is that the work that we've been doing to limit public gatherings and institute physical distancing measures has worked. Unfortunately, our results lag, obviously, from the time we institute those measures. So we can't necessarily see the impact of what we're doing until 2 and 3 weeks from now in the hospitalization data and so forth. I think that some of it is too soon. I do, because we simply don't have the widely accepted public health criteria met for moving into this phase so quickly. I'd probably wait another week or two. I will say over the last week or so, we've seen a good trend in the data. Hospitalizations are down, ICU use is down, ventilators are down, which ultimately is a better measure of how we're doing than simply infection rate, because we know one of the challenges of this whole thing, and something that the governor did not address, is testing. And every city in the state is not doing enough testing. Every city in the country is not doing enough testing to really have confidence that the measures that we're putting in place and the phasing of those measures will achieve the desired result. And so while we see our data trending well, we don't see enough data. All of the enforcement has essentially fallen to the cities, and I think enforcement becomes a deadly serious issue. And so with regard to physical distancing requirements and capacity limitations in restaurants, I think a couple of things are going to happen. One is we're going to enforce using civil penalties and even law enforcement if necessary, and ultimately shutting businesses down if they fail to comply with the governor's measures and with our standards. But you're also going to see businesses self-regulate. I mean, one of the elements of opening up an economy, a critical element, is building back consumer confidence, that if they patronize a business, they're not going to be at risk of getting sick. And so we are looking to, and this is part of the economic transition team's work, is to establish expectations and standards among the sectors in our economy that help us see if a business is complying with the social distancing measures. Our reading of that is that he was very clear we can't institute a fine, but it also is clear that from our public health guidance and the CDC, that if you're over the age of 2, according to the CDC, it's important for you to wear a mask. And so we're going to continue that in our order. The mask life is going to be with us for a long time because social distancing is something we've got to continue to do until there's a vaccine, frankly. I want it to occur in a careful, phased manner, according to the public health guidance, the data that we have available to us, starting with seeing a sustained decline in our caseload and hospitalization rate, but also ensuring that we have the capacity to contain further infections and identify further infections as we start to open things up. Testing and tracing of new infections becomes an absolutely critical component of opening an economy back up. We're getting there. We're not there yet. So there's an element of risk in opening it up right now. We're going to be working through those capacity issues, just like every other city, as quickly as possible. Those discussions are already taking place in many circles right now. One thing that has been evident, and the press has done an incredibly important job in highlighting the fact that a crisis of this magnitude exposes all of the fissures within our society that exist. Socioeconomic inequity, generational poverty, the vast gulf that is the digital divide here in San Antonio, my hope is that as we begin to build back our economy, we're doing so in a much more equitable manner. But the businesses will have that discussion. The city council and the commissioners court will be having that discussion. The community at large will be having that discussion. And that we have to be focused on building a city that's more resilient, that can withstand these issues, which are issues that have been exacerbated by the lack of equity in our community. So my mind is centered on what are those fundamental pieces of a society that make us stronger, more resilient, more equitable. You start with education. You start with the ability to access, the ability for anyone raised in San Antonio, regardless of where they live, how they're raised, to be able to access education that propels them to a meaningful career. So our focus needs to be first on education of the next generation.